Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast, a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I wanted to talk to you about the letter of intent because it's something that I really enjoyed doing last year, which was looking at people's letter of intents, giving them feedback on it, and even better, hearing from some about their successes in getting interviews and residencies eventually. But what I wanted to do was formalize the process and just kind of take that journey with a number of people. And I guess this is kind of the concierge letter of intent model where it's just $75 for me to work with you through the residency season. And I want to tell you who should and shouldn't ask for my help. If you're already someone who's pretty fantastic at writing and has a background maybe in English or even a liberal art like history or something like that, then you're probably going to be able to write a great letter, no problem. The big thing that I had, because English wasn't my first language, I kind of went overboard in correcting for that, and I got an undergrad English degree. I went to a PhD program in rhetoric and professional communication, and I am now on what I think my 15th book in terms of writing, and I'll have 20 by the end of the year. So I know exactly what needs to go in that letter, and the reason I'm focusing only on the letter of intent is that, one, I really only have the bandwidth to help maybe a couple dozen people, and I'm going to limit the number because this is just going to be fun for me. But if you do want me to help you, just let me know and we'll see if it's a good fit. Best places to reach me, Tony Pharm D1 on Facebook.com, or you can get me by my email, aaguerra@dmacc.edu. Just want to let you know, though, also I've released Memorizing Pharmacology, Questions, Answers, and Rationales, Book 2. You can get that at memorizingpharm.com/free book codes. I have free book codes for most every one of my books. There's just like a couple left for the residency ones, some pharmacotherapy ones left, other pharmacology ones as well, but feel free to grab those. So let's get into what you really need to do if you want to prepare to work with me or you want to prepare to work with anyone in terms of the letter of intent. So what is a letter of intent? A letter of intent really is a way that somebody can get to know you. And what unfortunately happens is that it becomes kind of a last thing that someone does. And that's the wrong way to use it. The way that you want to use a letter of intent is to have this kind of self-reflection on the things that you care about. And if you have your letter of intent done before you go to mid-year or before you start applying for residencies, it makes it so much easier. Because once you start looking at the 5 broad categories, and there are kind of 5 main categories that you want to look at in terms of what is it that someone wants in a residency program, but also how does that residency program match to them? And the thing is that there are thousands of residency programs. This isn't applying to pharmacy school where 2.75 people apply to each person has 2.75 applications. There's 142 schools to choose from, pretty easy. Most people choose geographically, pretty easy to narrow that down. But now you're talking about having thousands and thousands of these residencies that you could go after. So a letter of intent kind of is saying, all right, well, after the residency, what do you want to do with your life? And you need to articulate that to the group. And what have you done to get there? And then how does the residency fit in the block between where you are now and where you want to be after you're done? So it has to include kind of why do you want to do a residency in the first place and why that residency is right. And I think it's really, really tough without having done your letter of intent or something like it to know how you fit to a residency program. So there's the fit with the people. So when you go to the one thing that when I went to mid-year, it felt like I was going to this kind of League of Nations, or if you think about the first couple weeks of undergrad, where all these clubs have these booths set up, and you just kind of get a feel for, wow, I have a good feeling about here, or yeah, I really wouldn't hang with these, hard pass on this group, and that kind of glorifying of the big residency programs that get you see the masses going to, and you kind of get away from that, because you just have this sense that, yeah, I feel comfortable here and I don't feel comfortable here. And for example, I went to an in-state school, so while I didn't necessarily feel comfortable in Baltimore City at first, what I did feel comfortable with was being around people from Maryland. And they spoke like me, and while not all of them were, very few were actually from Montgomery County, but there were a couple that were from Montgomery County, and even if they weren't, I knew Baltimore County, I knew Frederick County, I knew Western Maryland, I knew the shore, and I knew where these people were from, and it was a very, very comfortable thing. When you go to those residency booths, what you're really looking for is that kind of feeling that, yes, this is where I belong. But then when we go from that kind of very subjective feeling to what we can do is create a 5 kind of part rubric for the objective part of it. And so the 5 pieces that you really want to look at are, clinically, do I match with this? Does the service that I do kind of fit with the things that they do for the greater community? And it could be religious, it could be a certain patient group, other things like that. Is my leadership going to help me in this residency? And then is this residency going to help me continue to move up in leadership? What experience do I have in teaching, and what teaching experience do I want to get? And then as a researcher, what questions am I really interested in? And am I going to be able to work with those questions, or do they already have those questions picked out for me? So clinical, service, leadership, teaching, and research, those are the big 5. And what you really want to do is that once you create your letter of intent and you create your 5 blocks, kind of how much clinical experience you have, where you see yourself clinically later, how does this residency fit? All of a sudden, you start seeing huge gaps in your own background that you can fix in some places with APPEs as you're moving through them. We're still in the point where you could go to the preceptor and say, hey, I'm just a little bit light on teaching and I'm a bit light on research. I want to make sure those are shored up before I do my residency applications. Or maybe you got elective rotations in the first couple and you need some clinical practice. Or you just haven't had time to do service. You've had to work a part-time job and you wanted to maybe connect with someone who could do that. So you're first going to identify your own gaps, but then you're going to identify the gaps that the programs might have. The program might be very clinically oriented, but it's a community-based one. There's just not a ton of research. There's not a lot of teaching. It's not really affiliated with any college of pharmacy, although there are hybrids, and it just doesn't fit. So until you know who you are in these 5 categories, it's really tough to judge how someone fits in their 5 categories. So my encouragement to you is to write. You would really want to write 5 paragraphs. 1, where do I see myself clinically? What service do I want to provide? What kind of leadership do I have and do I want? What kind of teaching do I want to do? And then what are those big research questions that you really, really wish you could answer? And, while my residency project wasn't something that I had thought about my whole life, it really just kind of fit me. Because when I went to kind of look at what I could do, I saw, okay, well, it's an election year. Is there anything cool going on with that? All right, here's this Vote and Vax program, and they're giving us free stuff to help lead people to more immunizations. And I wonder if we put the voting, if we put the immunizations at the voting place, I wonder if we could help out more people. And it did end up showing that 3-1 it did. But my background wasn't in electoral college or politics or anything like that. But my background was in solving a problem. People are busy. People don't get their shot because it's inconvenient for them to. And I wanted to see, is this a convenient way to make it happen? And so really that's all I've been doing my professional life, is trying to solve these problems of, well, if I could make this more convenient, like an audiobook, would it be easier for somebody to learn as they're going to school? If I made YouTube videos, would it be a lot easier? And so now I have, 17,000 followers or subscribers to Tony Pharm D YouTube. And I have, the audiobooks, which are I'm somewhere around 23,000 in the since 2016, so 4 years. So I'm really able to help a lot of people because I'm focusing on what is it that is really getting in the way of their success. So my recommendation is if you really struggle with these things, you're putting the pieces together, but it's just not coming together, definitely work with me. If it just all looks beautiful and you're like, that was a great reflection, I did a really great job. Or maybe your college already has a program that helps you craft this letter of intent, then yeah, go with them and you don't need me. But just let me know and we can have a quick conversation about it and see if we're a good fit. But do grab those audiobook codes. They tend to go really quickly after the podcast episode airs. Hey, thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. And if you're interested in learning more about the interview process, go over to Amazon.com where you can check out 100 strong residency interview questions, answers, and rationales in print book, ebook, and audiobook.